When I was a student at Sunset and Aim, they had Rex Boyles particularly, had a saying. Whenever we got to where we were being a little bit, as a class, too whiny, if we were on a trip or something like that, people started complaining about the food or the weather or the whoever, whatever it was. If people got too whiny, he had this thing he would always say. He said, "Who do you think you are, the ancient Israelites?" Because they were always whining, and God got pretty tired of it, and we knew that was code for Rex is getting pretty tired of it, or whoever it was that said it. As people, just human beings, whininess really is just a constant thing that I think we all battle. Things aren't just the way we like them. I mean, all of us, we're just that way. And things can be going really well. You can be staying, I've known people stay in really nice hotel with, fantastic, upscale mattresses and comforters and fancy pillows. We stayed at a hotel in New York City one time, had a menu of 6 different kind of pillows. You could choose a different pillow every night that you're there, that sort of a thing. And still, people who just will complain, "I just wish I was home in my own bed," just all the time whining. This is what it was like to be Moses, okay? 1 million people, or, a lot of people out in the desert, hundreds of thousands, whining, griping, complaining all the time. And God got so tired of it that by the time he got to Numbers chapter 11, and there's a really easy way that Craig Hicks taught us to remember what's in Numbers chapter 11. In Numbers 11, they're griping about all of the manna and everything, how they were tired of that. And God said, "Fine, I'll give you quail. I'll give you quail until it runs out your nose." See this? Like a 1 and a 1, like an 11. Just runs out your nose. I never forgot it. The memory trick worked because he was so fed up with their whining. And it started, the whining, on day 1, because that's what humans are like, isn't it? People can show up to work and whine about how hard the work is before they've actually even done anything. It's just tough. I almost want to say it's tough being a man. But men are not alone in this, okay? Whining, complaining, griping, being spoiled is an equal opportunity event, isn't it? Everybody of every age. It's not just generational, because every generation has taken their turn and excelled at the whining. It just is, it's human, and it's a part, I believe, of our fallen humanness. The reason I think it's part of our fallen humanness is God hates it, and he kept telling us to quit it, okay? So I think that's what it is. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 14, what does he say? Complain and grumble about how many things? Nothing. Most violated scripture in all the Bible, I do believe, including by myself. I mean, it comes so naturally for all of us, doesn't it? We're in one of those moments. Go to your Bible, Exodus 14, and we are in one of those moments where there should have been every reason for rejoicing. There should have been every reason for a deep faith and a confidence in God that he would deliver them. God has just brought the Israelites out of slavery, okay? This is their walking out the door moment of Egypt, and they are sitting there as free men, women, and children being led and protected by God. You would think they would have been singing, wouldn't you? Excited and praising God and high-fiving each other. It should have been an awesome moment. That is not what happened. What happens is, as soon as they get to the first obstacle, I mean, it's a big obstacle, it's the Red Sea, but it's just the first obstacle. What do? "Oh, God, what'd you even bring us out here for?" Let's read it, the first part of it. This is Exodus chapter 14, starting in verse 10. I'm in the NIV today. If you're one of those people who uses YouVersion app, the outline is in there. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. Okay, terrified might make some sense from a human point of view. God did tell them on their way out of Egypt to grab a bunch of gold. He did not tell them to grab a bunch of defensive weapons. Have you ever thought about that part of this story? Ever? If you left town, what would you have grabbed? But what did they grab? God did not tell them to arm themselves for their escape. Why? Why? I think there's a spiritual lesson here. We'll read about it here in just a second, but just mull on that. So as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were Egyptians marching after them, and they were terrified and cried out to the Lord. I'm going to give them credit. They were terrified, and they shouldn't have been, okay? But that's the human point of view. You look up, and you see one of the most powerful militaries at that time on the planet. And they are coming after you, and that dirt is flying, and the chariot wheels are turning, and the horses are snorting, and people are yelling, and maybe trumpets are blasting, and they are coming after you. There's reason, from a human point of view, to be afraid. If you wake up tomorrow and look out the window, and there's 3 tanks and a bunch of guys with guns, you would have reason to be terrified. Except for one factor for them. Who was their leader? And it isn't Moses. It's God, who had just shown them in every possible way that he was more powerful than them or the idol gods that they worshipped. Every single one of those plagues was a poke in the eye of a dead idol. Every single one of them was a way of telling the Egyptians, God, Jehovah, the one God, is more powerful than all that you have ever thought, pretended, or known. And he's shown them day after day, plague after plague, his power. And then he's taken them out of slavery, hundreds of years of slavery. You would think that they would have been looking at the Egyptians and saying, come at me, bro. But that's not what they said. Instead, they're crying and screaming, oh, God, help us, and just whining, scared to death. Do they not know the God that led them out here? Do they not know the God who showed them his power? The God their ancestors and grandparents and parents had told them about over and over again, who would lead them out, and now it's happening? Do they not know this God at all? Well, let's keep reading verse 11. They said to Moses, was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us out to the desert to die? Were they just running out of cemetery plots? So you brought us out here to the desert where it's easy to dig? Is that what you did, Moses? Smart Alex. That's what they think. Whining and griping. What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? How shallow is the faith of somebody who is delivered by the Almighty God, and a day later, if it's even a day later, sees one obstacle and said, I guess we just came out here to die in a more convenient spot. How shallow is that faith? Let me ask you this. How much can we relate to that faith? We've had those days, haven't we? I'm not really picking on the Israelites, and I'm not really picking on us either. But in all honesty, haven't we all had those days? It's just, God, I don't even know why you brought me here. I don't know why you put me in this situation. I don't know why you put me in this relationship or family or whatever it is. God, why'd you even do that? Why'd you even bring me out here? Maybe you just wanted to see me squirm. Verse 12. Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians. That's not really quite what they were saying. If you look back, they were crying out then too, and they were calling on God and pleading with God. Please deliver us from the slavery and the whips at our back. They cried out to God. God, when he sensed Moses, part of the message was, I have heard your cries out to me. But now, because the situation's changed, they're like, well, we told you just to leave us there. Now, we've all done that too, haven't we? Really? We've all done that. It feels like a road trip, doesn't it? Didn't I tell you to turn back there? No, you didn't say anything about that. Well, I thought it, and you should have turned back there. We've all had those trips, conversations, and we've been on both sides of them. This is a bunch of Israelites in the desert. You see why Rex compared us to them? And you get it. Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. See, here's the thing. We all think we're the people who will say it'd be better to die in the desert than to serve you, right? We want to be that revolutionary freedom fighter person. But most of the time, we're these people right here. Well, at least, they go on and tell him later on, this is later in Numbers, well, at least back there in Egypt, we had fish and cucumbers. Oh, that sounds great. I can already tell Becky's ready to go back to Egypt right now, aren't you? Yeah, fish and cucumbers. Good. It's the level to which we will go to gripe and complain and whine and be afraid. It just bears out sometimes the shallowness sometimes of our faith. But it doesn't have to be that way at all. Look at verse 13. Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians that you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still." We're looking at times where God has told us to just be, and what to be and how to be. And in this moment, through his servant Moses, he looks at people who are afraid. He looks at people who are overwhelmed. He looks at people who are, in their words here, terrified, who are griping and complaining. He says, you know what? I just want you to watch. Sit back and watch. All you have to do is be still, and you're going to see. Look at the phrasing that Moses uses here. Oh, I forgot all about that one. Y'all see, I took this picture of one of y'all just the other day, didn't I? Yeah. That's the way we are, as we're looking at the wrong thing. Look at his phrasing. Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid." I've said once or twice in the last few years that it's funny. We quote this passage quite often. It became the most searched passage for a couple of years. But most often, I think the people that we were trying to convince in quoting it was ourselves. Because I noticed that the people who quoted it the most, "Don't be afraid, I'm not going to do anything out of fear," were the people I found to be the most afraid. Often not afraid of the thing that they were speaking against, but afraid of just some other thing, you know. They weren't afraid of, I'm going to use a C word. If this is a trigger word for you, y'all just be careful, okay? If they weren't afraid of COVID, they were afraid of a mask, or they were afraid of what that represented. But aren't those both fears? That's the hypocrisy I saw a lot during that time period, was people who said, well, I'm not going to do this because I don't fear. Really? How come you're the same person who tells me every 3 minutes on why I should be afraid of the government? Oh, that's sinking in, isn't it? I could tell. Think about that. Isn't that weird? I just think it's weird. I'm not picking on either side of that because, you know, there's plenty to go around. But isn't it weird what we do? We all have fears. There are those who will admit them, and there are those who will point out others' fears so that they don't have to admit their own, because they are afraid of being transparent. They're afraid of letting their humanity show, not realizing that it shows all the time anyway, so why not? Don't be afraid. Next, stand firm. I mentioned last week that there are a lot of things that are changing in our world, and they're not changing for the better. And it's not the first time they've changed, but it wasn't good the other times either. But that there are things that are changing. There are also hardships that come up. Some of those things are moral. Some of them are just circumstantial. They're not moral or immoral, but they're bad consequences of bad decisions, and they cause hardship on our life. And you look at things like inflation and things like that. That's one of those things. Job losses, things like that, things that are personal, job loss diagnosis, all that kind of stuff. There are things that we don't foresee, but we know that there's always something right around the corner. And it's easy for us, knowing that, to become people who constantly live in fear of that too. And it's like, oh, James, don't bring that up again, because now you got me nervous about that too. And we become afraid. He's told us what to be. First, truthfully, Don't quote it, live it. Just don't live in fear. Second, stand firm. Now, to stand firm, there are some things you have to do. You have to know what you stand for. You have to know what you believe. More importantly, you have to know what God would have you stand for, which may be different from what you believe and would stand for. And you've got to know which one of those is the one that matters. Because there may be things you would stand up for that God would say, humble yourself. And there are things where you would say, I'm not sure that's that important, where God would say, it is eternally important. And yes, I will judge you for that. Know what you stand for. Know why you stand for it. But you know what's also incredibly important and what Moses is saying? Know the one with whom you stand. Don't just know that you stand with God. Know God as you stand with him. Build a relationship with God and stand by him. Stand firm, and you will see. Do you notice Moses' faith and confidence? He doesn't say, if you will stand firm, then you might see. He says, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. You get that confidence not by just walking around saying, do not fear. You get that confidence by standing firm with the Lord your God, standing in his presence, standing in his truth, standing in his promises, and standing firm, and you will see it. I love this line. I don't know that this ever jumped out to me like it did this week. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. Is that not awesome? I didn't put it in bold, but I could have. I was running out of places where I could put things in bold and it just wouldn't all be bold. The Egyptians you see today, you'll never see again. Who's your Egyptian? What's your Egyptian army that you're afraid of? If you will stand with God and let him fight that battle, that promise is yours too. God can get you through anything. And if you will stand firm with him, for him, and for his truth and in his faith, these problems, there will come a time when you will never see them again. Now here's my question. You believe that? Do you believe that those things will never be seen again? It may be when we cross the river ourselves and go into eternal life with God. Let me ask you, do you believe that at that time, when God sends his Son to resurrect the dead, that you will enter into a life in which you will never see these Egyptians again? Never disease, never conflict, never the fear of a doctor's diagnosis, never the fear of a boss's crankiness, never the fear of a relationship falling apart, never the fear of money, bills, or inflation ever again. Do you believe that that's what's ahead for us? Because what Moses said to them is what I would say to you. Stand firm. You just stand back and watch. Because the Lord will deliver. And the Lord will make good on that promise. And you will never, ever see taxes again. Ever? Never. It's that time of year, isn't it? You will never see that again? Never. Never. Never a mortgage payment. Never a high grocery bill. Never a shrinking portfolio because some guy in a suit in New York decided to make a stupid decision. Never again. Never again. Bring it closer to home. There'll be a never, that's pretty close. Never an argument again. Because God will have redeemed us and rid us of all of our sin and our failings. and our best self will be our only self. You'll never look in the mirror and see that Egyptian again either. You'll see the one God created you to be, the one God has been shaping you to be, but perfected and whole. That's incredible, isn't it? What in the world do we have to fear then? What do we have to whine about? What do we have to complain about? What are we worried about? I don't even know. I mean, give me an hour and I'll probably be able to give you a list again. But that's because I'm human. And you probably give me yours too. So I want you to take a second and really focus on this for a minute. I'm not going to give any more examples. Those might not be yours. Answer this question for yourself. What robs you of your peace? What is it that makes you wake up at night and then never go back to sleep again? I hate it when that happens. What kicks you into a cycle of crisis or fear or insecurity? Just insecurity. Might not even be based on anything real, just your perception of how other people perceive you, none of which is even accurate or real, but it's very real in the way it produces anxiety, depression, sorrow, none of which, by the way, those Egyptians all go away. Can you imagine that for a second? For those of you who deal with those things all the time, you will never see that Egyptian again. Won't that be incredible? Now imagine the joy you will feel at watching the waters close in on all those things and be done with them. And just be done with them. The psalmist, and we don't know exactly who it was, in Psalm 46, had several things to say on exactly this and things that remind us of why it is so good to be a child of God. So Psalm 46, it's written by the sons of Korah. We don't know exactly who those guys were. They worked at the temple and they wrote music and everything else. They basically, some of y'all are going to get your toes stepped on here, and I just apologize. They were the praise team that worked at the temple because God, even though we don't have one, God had one, okay? The sons of Korah were God's praise team. And this is what they wrote for a particular service. Just think about that for a second, but don't think about me when you think about it because then you'll come and complain. Verse 1, we're going to go through this psalm, okay, together. God is our refuge and our strength and ever-present help in trouble. I love that passage. That is a common passage for people to encourage each other with because it speaks right to our Egyptians, doesn't it? God is our refuge and our strength and ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear. Though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and mountains quake with their surging, it could have put right in there. Even if an army is coming on down on me and I have nowhere to escape to, God is my refuge and my strength. I think they sang that one loud, don't you? I bet this was not, God is my refuge. I bet it wasn't like that at all. All right? Verse 4, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. Look at this. God is within her. She will not fall. He's talking about the people of God. God is within her. God is within the church. God is within his bride. God is within you. You will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Now, I think that sometimes it's just a reminder. It's at break of day. Sometimes you got to make it through the night standing firm, trusting God's timing. I think a lot about William Wallace and Braveheart. And I think a lot about, especially in Braveheart, more than anything, is when they're sitting there yelling it, and the guys are starting to come, and they just keep going, hold! And I think this is exactly what was happening at the Red Sea. Moses is having to tell the people of Israel, you'll calm down and hold, okay? Just hold a minute. God is going to act. Just watch. All you need to do, he said, is be still. Just be still. It's not your problem to fix. Be still. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar. Still true. Kingdoms fall. Still true? Yeah. He lifts his voice and the earth melts. Is that still true? Yes, it is. The Lord Almighty is with us. Is that still true? It is. And the God of Jacob is our fortress. Third verse. Come and see. Come and see what the Lord has done. The desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth, and he breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. You come and see what God has done. Open up your Bible. Look and see his track record. See what he's done. Look back at your own life, at the giants that he has already caused to fall. And remember, come and see. God has a resume. God is victorious. God is powerful. More, God is compassionate and loving and kind to you. Come and see. He says, be still. Be still. Some of your translations say, cease striving. Calm down. I can't help but think of the meme that goes around every now and then. No one in the history of calm down has ever calmed down just because you said it. I understand. But I didn't say it. God did. Calm down, be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with you. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Be still and know it. More importantly, be still and know him, and you'll know. Take the time to get to know your God. And then you will know peace. You will know healing. You will know comfort. You will know strength. You will know victory. I have a song. I'm going to read these words. They're very powerful. Probably noticed that when we sang it earlier. The words in this song come from, I don't know who Katharina von Schlegel was in 1752, but I'm pretty sure they come from the Spirit of God within her by what's said. And they speak so powerfully to us. As it progresses as you go through the song, from us starting at a place like the Israelites, of a place of fear or anxiety or worry or stress or whatever. Because why else would you be telling your soul to calm down? And then ends with a picture of hope. And here's what I want you to do. I would really like for you, if you don't mind, you don't have to do this obviously, but if you wouldn't either take the hand of the person next to you, and I am so not a take the hand of the person next to you, that's why I'm doing this while I'm up here. But if you will take the hand of the person next to you, or if you know the person next to you is a hugger and it's all right, put your arm around them and comfort them. I want you, though, to bow your head. That almost felt Baptist. All heads are bowed and eyes are closed. But I would like you to bow your heads for a second and just hear these words, okay? Close your eyes and hear these words. They're not a prayer, but they are meant for you. And I want you to not be distracted by anybody else or anything else, and just hear these words. Be still, my soul. The Lord is on thy side. Bear patiently the cross of grief or pain. Leave to thy God to order and provide. In every change, he faithful will remain. Be still, my soul, thy best, thy heavenly friend, through thorny ways leads to a joyful end. Be still, my soul, thy God doth undertake to guide the future as he has the past. Thy hope, thy confidence, let nothing shake. All now mysterious shall be bright at last. Be still, my soul. The waves and winds still know his voice who ruled them while he dwelt below. Be still, my soul. The hour is hastening on when we shall be forever with the Lord, when disappointment, grief, and fear are gone, sorrow forgot, love's purest joys restored. Be still, my soul, when change and tears are past, all safe and blessed, we shall meet at last. You open your eyes. That is God's blessing for you today. I encourage you to go back and look over those words. Make them your own, because they are. Look at Psalm 46. Make those words your own, because they are. And then let's together, like Moses encouraged the Israelites, let's together stand firm and watch what God does, because we need only be still in the presence and promise of God to see that happen.